So we are, not, kind of, sort of, Face of Jericho. We are going to be making the ship in part 1 of the workshop, and then in part 2 we're going to talk about the crew of the ship. And the crew can include some NPC creation, maybe not full creation, but we can discuss maybe a couple of the more notable personalities. And we're going to explore the Saltmarsh content revolving around that. Sure. All right, Jericho. I shall do so. And if I slip up, just remind me. I'm not going to take personal offense or anything to it. So we have the beautiful sounds of a dock district in the background. It is time to delve into creating our ship. Now, in Ghost of Saltmarsh, there are just ships. You could choose what they look like, or generally, they'll give you a map of the decks. You'll get the stats. And, this is fine for a ship. But this is not just a ship. This is our ship. This is the ship of misfits, of absolute misfits, that form up the officer ranks aboard it. And instead of just saying that our longship, or whatever it's going to be, our longship is like any other longship, we are going to develop the ship as an NPC. And we're going to make sure it has its own set of quirks. It has its own, it has its own thing, right? Something that it does interestingly, or that makes it just something different. And we can access the rest of the information here in Ghosts of Saltmarsh. But primarily, we're actually going to be going into the Dungeon Master's Guide. Because I want to make this ship a character itself, in a sense. It will be an NPC, just its own kind of NPC. The ship will have some kind of spirit, some kind of attitude, just something in its history. Jericho, it will have abilities and will roll for its high ability and its low ability, which could include mental stats. Hi, Zulerpie. So I will not be satisfied with just a ship. Why am I not surprised? And why not go big? Zulerpie, we're going to make a fun, quirk-filled ship. As opposed to arguably not as fun, quark-filled ship. Because he's just going to be kind of annoying. He's going to haggle you over everything. And Diadems, hello, welcome. Exactly, Jericho. Yep. I feel like a boat could totally have charisma. That's how you represent the aesthetic. And this boat may well have charisma, and we'll find out. So we're going to start with occupation, maybe not so much history, because I think we need a couple other prompts first before we can get into the ship's history. Its occupation, however, that's something that we're going to get to as well with its background. Oh, snap! Trust-a-Flump with 8 months. Hey, aren't you supposed to be on vacation? What are you doing here, Trust-a-Flump? Huh? All right. I won't tell anyone you're here. Go back to super secret stealth mode. That's right. This is vacation, and you darn well better believe that you should be enjoying it and relaxing and not thinking about D&D, because you do that, or work, or both. Anyway, welcome, Trustaflump. Vacation are my streams? Hey, well then sit back and relax. So the ship's occupation, we're going to determine through its background. I don't want to do that just yet either. So while this is something that we would start off with in the creation of a humanoid, or a more human NPC, we're going to start with the ship's appearance. Remember that, you know, these charts are meant for humanoid NPCs. There's nothing saying that we can't interpret them into aspects of our vessel. Our ship appearance, well, we have 20 options here under an NPC appearance. I'm going to open up the random roller here on our character generator, and I'm going to hit this nice red D20. And I want to do this first because I want us to imagine, right? I want us to start forming the ship in our minds. And perhaps we can do so physically, give it a silhouette or some kind of outline. And we'll fill it in with, we'll color it with personality from there. Our ship appearance is generally described as number 3. Our abilities are high and low. This is going to be determined on 2d6. 6 and 3. Now as we come over here, we have talents, mannerisms, and interaction traits. So we're going to have a D20, a D20, and a D12. D20 is 4, 6, 8. 4, 6, 8. Now, NPCs have different ideals, bonds, and a flaw or a secret than a character or a very detailed NPC would otherwise. And for example here, right, our NPC ideals are spread out here over what we can say is 2d6. The first is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then a 6 within there. So we're going to need to roll 2d6, 10, and a 12. 2d6, 10, and 12. So we have 4, 6, 6, 11. Whoop, that's 4, 6, 6, and 11. Now, lastly, because we're generating placeholders, I want to do this in a little different order, so we have the numbers and we can tell the story as we keep going down and interpreting them. Our occupation or our background. I want to actually open up all backgrounds to this ship, not just the Saltmarsh, the new ones that are 4. Now that said, we are going to include. They have to be put on the sheet here. So we are going to add. There are 62 backgrounds. So really, there are 66 backgrounds. So 63 through 66 are going to be Saltmarsh backgrounds. But here we go. We are going to generate a 66-sided dice and find out what is the occupation. What does the ship do? Is it a far traveler? Is the ship a folk hero? Is it a caravan specialist? Jericho, it was a joint effort between myself and Trustaflumph. It was based on the old character randomizer spreadsheet that I used, but I'll tell you, Trustaflumph put a ton of polish on it, and it absolutely shines. All right, our 66-sided die will tell us a little bit more about the ship. And I don't want to look at that just yet. I just want to generate a number. I'm showing that off for poops and ha-has. 60. So we're close to a Saltmarsh background, but we're not quite there. We're gonna also have we're gonna assign it 2 personality traits as well, and those are gonna be 2d8. So we have a 4 and we have a 7. And now we get to things that really random dice rolls aren't going to be able to catch. This is a synopsis. Well, there's going to be some random rolls here, but not just yet. This is going to be some very quick and fast character creation for the synopsis. But the history and useful knowledge are things that we'll make up that could fill in the gaps or help us understand why and how a ship like this can exist. We could Zulerpie. I'm not necessarily against that. I think there might be a similar chart in Saltmarsh that we could check out just in case. This version of the character generator, Jericho, is not publicly available, but the spreadsheet that it is based upon is, and you can find it if you go to the pinned messages of Table Talk, which is our general chat channel on our Discord server. Alright, so now that we have our random numbers generated, let's bring up the Dungeon Master's Guide. And layer by layer, let's explore our ship and build its story. What is it? Who is it, even if you'd like? Why does it exist the way that it does? And how can we interpret some humanoid prompts and apply them to a ship? All right, our ship appearance. We rolled number 3. Flamboyant or outlandish clothes? Does this mean that the ship is painted in gaudy colors, or that the sails are striped or even checkered? Does this mean that there's some kind of filigree? As clothes. Maybe there's a bunch of maybe there's several figureheads, or the hull just isn't a smooth hull. It has sort of a bas relief, BAS space relief. A bas relief of a bunch of figures carved into the side. That could also very well be painted. Is the ship painted sort of a bright pink? Now, during a sunrise or a sunset, that could actually be pretty useful. But now we have this prompt. We have our ship appearance. As we're discovering more about the ship, what makes it flamboyant, or what makes it outlandish? Are clothes the sail and the ropes? Are clothes the paint, or the other decor, or other aspects of the ship? If there's a possibility of it, Jericho, it's not going to be anytime soon. A custom designed ship shape meant to achieve some purpose outside a regular one. Well, hang on to that, Jericho, because we're gonna continue digging here. Because you know what, clothes could also be. We could have very poofy shoulders, or you know, kind of those puffy kind of director or equestrian pants. You know, we could put a some sort of interesting hat as a flag, or we could come up. Maybe it's some sort of like Art Deco where the masts are actually sort of like carved statues of figures like holding up the sails, and you know the rudder is actually sort of like two powerful carved hands holding a map, which is the rudder or something. That could very well be flamboyant or outlandish as well. Okay, so we have a flamboyant or outlandish ship in appearance. Its abilities, its high ability is charisma. Its low ability is constitution. So it may not be able to take hits all that well, but this ship absolutely has panache. In fact, we'll even use the 7th Sea mechanical term, panache, if any of you have ever played 7th Sea, the role-playing game. Now, this is a broad interpretation. What would a high charisma of a ship mean or be? Does it combo with ship appearance? Probably. Maybe even with constitution, right? It's much more form over function. It could be, Jericho. Hey, keep throw out those ideas. Let's build as we go along. And anyone else out there, if you have ideas or prompts, throw them out there. Don't wait for me to go through all the numbers. You can if you want. I'm not saying, you know, don't. But Woof Babe Ame. Or is that Woof Babeem? Please let me know how to pronounce your name. Thank you very much for the host. Next up, what talent does this ship have? What is it especially good at doing? And how can we interpret this? Now, we rolled number 4. Number 4, the ship has a perfect memory. It has a perfect memory. For a ship, what does that mean? How can we interpret that? Is that something along the lines of its sails? Its sails are maps to all the places it's been? Or its sail acts as sort of a big GPS screen, so the main sail will always show the sailors, you know, where they're at? If the ship has a perfect memory, does that mean that it's a ship tradition that all of the officers carve their names into a particular piece of railing? And so the ship remembers through the carvings all of the past crew or officers that have been aboard? Is the ship just kind of quasi-supernaturally just really good in warm waters? Because those are the only waters it's sailed, and it knows it very well. What could perfect memory mean for a ship? The ship's history is carved into itself? So that could even be a part of its flamboyant or outlandish appearance. Right, Tel? I got it right the first time. Woof Babe Ame. All right then. I'm glad, and so yeah, thank you very much for that. I hope that you can kick back, relax, and enjoy our D&D workshop. For any of you out there, you're welcome to throw your ideas out. If you have questions, ask questions. New players are welcome, and even if you've been playing this game forever and a day, if you have insight or observations, hey, share it with others. This is a game of teaching and passing on, concepts and methodologies. If you go around the hull, it illustrates the story of some great battle. Well, maybe we'll figure out, if that's the case, what the battle could end up being. Magic map table in the captain's cabin that knows the reefs and shoals and ports. And you know what? It could be that. The perfect memory could just be for a perfect memory of its cargo. You know, maybe the ship can just... The ship's manifest can always manifest a perfect accounting. Or there's a fish finder, and it just knows all the good fish in holes. Let's continue and find out. I think we have a lot of awesome ideas we're building on. The carvings are almost like filigree, beautiful, but not structurally functional. Offers Rytel. Our ship's mannerisms. What is something that will help us continue to remember our ship and will set it apart from other ships that may be like it? We rolled number 6. It speaks loudly. A ship that speaks loudly. Does the hull creak often? Does the wind sing or whistle through the rigging? Do the carvings or something else about the ship make the waves pounding against it sound like drums? Or somehow especially amplify the burbling of water? Is it peaceful? Just an amplified peaceful sound? Does it rely on nature, such as the force of the sea or the wind? Or is it something about the ship itself that, maybe because of its construction, things just creak, even if it's, perfectly calm water? Yet or it's the acoustics of the ship. Could it be something structural, just like voice tubes, right? So that the officers could shout into a tube and it amplifies the sound? Or is it something like an amphitheater in the back that acts as that? It amplifies people's talking so that the whoever's in charge can be in the back or at the fore of the ship and shout backwards. And it's structurally a part of the ship to amplify sound and voices. Or, hey, Jensen says the ship hums. Right? Something about the ship is giving off a constant hum, even though it's rocking in the sea. I'm really liking the idea of the ship being an homage to some great battle designed for a crew. Rytel says, this is making me want a seafaring campaign, and I barely have the free time for the games I get to play. Oh, all right, Rytel, I'm sorry to put that itch under your skin. I hope in some way that we can at least scratch the same itch by going through the workshop. So, Jericho, are you thinking this is a memorial ship of some kind? Almost like a floating museum? Barely having time for current games is a real struggle for me. Yeah, you want to juggle... And also, hi, Coffee Cat. How do you juggle them and also not grow tired of the games that you're playing in so that you do not enjoy them? Also, Coffee, depending on what you all end up doing, we might even be able to get some stuff done inside roleplay. If you, Lethality, and Derek are up for it, we might be able to get some more side roleplay done, and we could probably go through a similar process to develop the airship that you have. There is actually stats for an airship in Unearthed Arcana. Now, this is not me guaranteeing you how long you'll have the ship, or we'll get to keep it, because honestly, for all I know, things can go bad and you accidentally blow the thing up in the middle of the desert. Or things go really well and, you're landing the fresh hotness in front of Brighton Norlai in the middle of town and everyone's gawking. That means, though, Coffee, and I remember you saying this earlier, that means we'd be giving the ship a name. Now, Selter has given the ship a name and called it the Maw. But I don't know how Mordecai would feel about giving the ship a name if something untowards might happen to it. Or yes, or Aslandian troops are going to come and get you. Uh-oh, I got to plug in. There we go. I don't think Mordecai would have any objection to what Selter has called it, and he certainly wouldn't feel weird about giving it a name. Okay. He understands the thing is rickety at best, even in the best circumstances. The ship speaks to the mind of the captain, hints and tips on how to better sail the ship itself. Ah! So it speaks loudly, but perhaps not to just anyone. Perhaps it speaks into the mind or the spirit or the energy of the people crewing or commanding her, or simply with one person, perhaps the captain, who has formed a special bond with it. Now, how does the ship interact with others? And, you know, you're like, well, what do you mean? Like, we speak face-to-face as humans. Well, and as this says, an NPC's behavior can change depending on who he or she is interacting with. For example, an innkeeper might be friendly toward guests and rude to her staff. We are going to give the ship one interaction trait, which was number 8. The ship is hot-tempered. What could that mean? Does it fight for control, almost wanting to sail itself? Is it, does the ship sail peacefully, but as soon as there's danger, the ship almost takes in like an aggressive stance and really gets feisty? Is this some kind of a rallying interaction where if the ship is upset at something, it could just honestly be poor weather, or it needs the deck scrubbed, you know, a little bit of bird poop on it, or it's getting feisty, that it just sends out kind of a vibe of irritation, which makes everyone else aboard also irritated? Whether it's all the crew and or the officers, one in particular, or just whomever makes someone else hot-tempered to get them to serve the purpose aboard the ship that needs served. You know, the squeaky wheel is going to get the grease. And if the deck needs mopped, does the ship almost activate people to mop the deck? If there is a small fracture in the hull, is it going to get under the skin or, you know, or otherwise kind of irritate someone into fixing the hull? Black Wolf says the ship is a tsundere. It's not a tsundere plane. But could the ship be tsundere? Hey, Neo Realms. What ideas are you floating around for side RP, though? Because I would imagine that a lot of next session is going to be repairs and downtime, much like Chroma did. Well, really, that's what I was almost expecting. You know, for things like repairs and all that, that could effectively just be done with some dice rolls. Now, if you all want to roleplay through it, that's fine. Like, roleplay with you three and things that could happen. But that just depends on your all's attitude and how you would want to go about that. Jericho says, for this, the literal spirits of battle are vying for control over the ship, a symptom of the enchantment. So the warriors that are emblazoned upon the ship are tattooed into it by paint or stain, or by relief or gilding. As the hull might be depicting a heated battle, different aspects of it might awaken. Zulerpai says maybe the ship has a ramming prow, and threatens to use it if some other ship, steals its berth or blocks its route. It might end up having a ram on it, Zulerpai. And when we decide what kind of ship this is, based on a lot of the stuff we're generating, then we'll find out, because some come with a ram, and otherwise a ram might just be an upgrade. I have no qualms with just leaving the repairs and such to dice rolls. I don't have plans for much other than that until the ship is in a better state. Well then, if we can collude with the two others, because I want to make sure everyone is, well, on board, I guess pun intended, with doing things in that methodology. Now, our ship's ideal. What does this ship hold dear, and that which governs his or her greater actions? We rolled 4 and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have a chaotic ideal of number 6, which is whimsy. Whimsy. Yes, I have your priority list. And honestly, I mean, Selter might just be happy to sit back and actually relax and treasure her, well, treasures for a while, though I'm sure she'd be willing to help out with the ship. And, I mean, you're all are kind of depending on this and trying to figure it out and seeing what you could do. Maybe it's a Fae ship? It could be. There are some things that we're going to get to that could very well indicate it is a Fae ship. Next up, we have our bond. What is our ship's bond? We rolled number 6. It is drawn to a special place. What is this special place? Or where is this special place? Is it something like the Feywild? Or the forest from which its trees that form the living or non-living hull were cut down? Is it drawn to rest above some sunken ship that could have been its twin? Or another ruin or something of great value? What or where is the special place, and why is it taken there? If it's a memorial ship, can it always seem to find itself back to the waters where the battle took place? Whether it's a harbor, it's deep water, or shallow? Whimsy, the ship likes to sound an action station's drill when the officer is in the head. Hey, yeah, the ship could be a bit of a trickster. Whimsy can very much play into that. A trickster ship would be very interesting. And it could be Fae, it could be haunted, or just some erratic magic. There's a lot of things that we can do. It could even just be the fact that it has a reputation and everyone who serves aboard it have heard of these legends, and so they psych themselves into it. And honestly, we know that the ship is just a ship. But we let everyone think it's something more. Now, much like a PC or an NPC, we have a flaw or a secret of some kind. Nothing is perfect, not even if it's engineered and built out of, built out of metal or wood. Our flaw or secret is number 11. It has possession of forbidden lore. What happened? Was there a murder aboard the ship? Is this special place actually not a good place? Does it know the location of someone or something? Is the ship, or was the ship created by a race of people long thought dead, but they're still alive? Now, why would that be forbidden? Depends on the culture, right? Every culture has different taboos or different thoughts on things that are legal or ethical. If it has possession of forbidden lore, could that simply be something along the lines of the ship knows that it is host to the souls of everyone who's died aboard, including those who might have died in that great combat? And so the ship is a soul collector. There doesn't even have to be ghostly manifestations. And it also doesn't also have to just eat souls and destroy them, kind of like, you know, the soulmonger in Tomb of Annihilation. By the way, it's not a spoiler for any of you. You get that in, like, page 1. So, unless you weren't planning on ever opening the cover of Tomb of Annihilation, I'm sorry. I spoiled page 1 for you. But the ship knows that everyone who dies aboard it, or something along those lines, have something like this. Or if there's ever if there are babies born aboard the ship, because it could be a passenger ship, that everyone who's born aboard it, or everyone who's been aboard the ship for 10 years or something, learns a piece of this forbidden lore. And it almost creates its own kind of, I mean, I'll say cult. It doesn't necessarily have to be nefarious, so maybe like a brotherhood or something along those lines. It's been a year and stuff. Oh my goodness, Daily. Thank you so much. Because I know you've been around longer than a year, but I super appreciate the fact that you've continued subscribing. You come back here. You know, your lore bombs are absolutely fantastic, and you bring a lot of positive energy to the channel. So thank you very much for being a part of it. The special place could be a forbidden location. Maybe, yeah. Hey, we can have this mesh up, right? What do I often say here? The story writes itself. And if some of these aspects loop back on each other, it means that you can go in a couple different directions and still end up in a relevant place that ties into other parts of the ship. The ship could have been like the lead ship in the battle, and it knows of every single soul that died in the great fight. Now, if that's the case, Jericho, what makes it forbidden knowledge? Would it be forbidden because the admiral or whoever aboard the ship actually sold his soul to win? And so people in the battle were given this kind of fiendish vigor, but it was at the cost of their lives or their unlives or their soul. In that case, is someone who we all considered in our history as player characters as a hero, a great hero, someone who led us through the darkest of times and won this crucial naval combat. Suddenly, we realized that this important person to our history sacrificed the crew for power or for victory. That could be forbidden lore as well. Now, this is going to be another big part of the ship. Its occupation. Now, we have a lot of prompts. You know, it could be a museum piece. It could just be repurposed and redecorated. What is something that the ship is and or was good at doing? Why was it built? Let's take a look at whatever background number 60 is. And this is going to give us a hint about the purpose of the ship or further purpose of it. And remember, it has a flamboyant or outlandish clothes, right? It's what's on the outside, but that doesn't mean that it can't have a functional hold or a weapon bay or something along those lines that, you know, isn't as gaudy or kind of oddly designed. When we consult our player or character randomizer, background number 60 is an urchin. Whew, this is really powerful and also really creepy. Because of the officers that command the ship. Well, the one we made last night was an urchin. I think there was another urchin as well. And most of the officers are young troubled kids. This is kind of spooky, everyone. But we can't be spooked. We got to keep going. This means that our ship probably has no ties to an official navy, or it did, and those ties were severed in some way. That this ship is some kind of an outcast, and it maybe was outcast for the knowledge it had. Or people considered the design to be flawed, and so it was kind of kicked to the curb. This is kind of spooky, everyone. What is the personality of our what's the personality, or this could almost be events in history or some other expression of the ship that happened to it to help us influence our ship? Whoop, I went too far. Personality trait number 4. I sleep with my back to a wall or tree, with everything I own wrapped in a bundle in my arms. And personality trait number 2 is number 7. I don't like to bathe. Neither does our other urchin, by the way. The ship's supernatural nature, or whatever it is, draws in lost, mismatched outcasts, much like itself. So the ship almost has this subliminal beacon to draw in the misfits and outcasts of the world. People who've been misunderstood. It acts to give urchins a found family they deserve. Oh, Rightel. That could be very very compelling as well. And we could still, I think, even mix this in with some of the ideas that Jericho's throwing out. This admiral helped us win. This ship knows of the diabolical reason of why the battle was won. He had his reasons, however, this knowledge is considered forbidden due to the infernal nature of it. Maybe this admiral is actually still alive on the ship. And as his punishment by the gods, he was bound to this ship to never leave it, or the sea, for dealing with the devil. So the admiral was a pious man, a pious sailor, but in his time of need, he didn't, maybe he cursed the gods for not giving him immediately what he wanted, and instead, for immediate glory, he sold himself. That could be a compelling story as well, Jericho. Hot-tempered to protect them, says Jensen. Maybe the ship was built by a secret ancient guild of kobolds, location unknown, but was supposedly lost in a storm on its maiden voyage, but the ship survived. The ship is a beacon? It's Annabelle. I presume that's a One Piece reference, Black Wolf. Our personality traits of our ship. We can use these to interpret some of its behaviors, some erratic things about it, some supernatural things, or some natural things about it. How can we take this aspect of the ship? I sleep with my back to a wall or tree, with everything I own wrapped in a bundle in my arms. Is this perhaps a clue engraved somewhere on a lower deck? A riddle to unfold that could lead to the treasure of knowledge or to something else hidden aboard the ship? Could the tree be a symbol for the mast? Or one of the masts? The bundle in my arms? What if on the interior of the ship, some of the kind of the ribs of the ship look like arms, sort of like embracing or giving a hug or something, or a part of the ostentatious nature? It could look like several dryads, right? If we want this to be still a fae ship or something, it could be figureheads of dryads, just, you know, with their arms out. And if you place something in their arms, maybe it's a riddle. Maybe this is the ship. The ship always seems to square up on other ships, so that it's more secure by presenting its side. I don't like to bathe. Could this be that the ship collects grime and barnacles and seaweed and anemones and such? Is I don't like to bathe something like you can't change its exterior, so you actually cannot repaint the ship because for some reason the hull just either doesn't take it, the paint just falls off or drips off, or it will never fade, or if you do overpaint it, perhaps the paint over the course of just days instead of months or years quickly fades or bubbles away and falls off. There's a lot of ways that we can take this as well. Or I don't like to bathe could also be, does the ship have a particular odor? Is it bad? You know, is it rancid? Does it smell sweet, like caramel taffy or cotton candy? Does it smell like animals for some reason? Does it smell like blood? And no matter how much you scrub the deck, you can't seem to get those very faint blood stains out of the wood. And even if you have to replace the wood, the stain just resets itself. Mysterious. It's a scary movie reference? Okay, Black Wolf. Porting in safe places, batten down, offers Jensen. Jericho says, maybe it's a ship with a new purpose of gathering misfits, as the Admiral has decided to dedicate himself to a higher purpose and seeks to help these people find a haven. The place it's drawn towards is some free haven for all people. So would that mean then that this Admiral or the person who commanded it before is perhaps in like a purgatory? Like a quasi-hell? Where until he can make up for the misdeeds that he had in life, he has to help people. But it's tough if he's been made kind of into a semi-conscious boat that can only communicate in, you know, odd fashion. So he's trying to reach some sort of karmic balance or the like. Jensen saying the Flying Dutchman. Jericho says the ship is not allowed to forget by cleaning itself. It still carries some of the sounds and smells of battle. The ship panics if it starts to take on water. You're going for what Rytel said? Or for something that I said, Jericho? Unfortunately, with me catching up in chat and a little bit of a delay, I don't know how to take that response. What I said. I said several things. Oh, about purgatory. Okay, thank you for clarifying. All right, so the synopsis is going to drop a couple more considerations. But before we get to that, let's review what we've generated so far about this ship. It is somehow flamboyant, or has outlandish clothes, quote unquote. The ship is very charismatic, but a low constitution. So that means it might have some stability issues, or it just can't take a lot of punishment in combat. It's built for form, not for function. The ship manifests some kind of perfect memory, which could tie into the flamboyance. It could tie into some of the other factors that are below, such as the... Oh, pardon. Could it be the special place or the forbidden lore? Could it be the concept that a captain or an admiral or some sort of other commander has made a deal with the devil of sorts, or has somehow betrayed the trust of a god or a patron, like a magical patron, like a warlock patron, not like the king is giving you money to go explore in the ship. But of course that could be it as well. Hey Shukan, welcome. Is this a regular sea-going ship, or maybe a sand submarine that navigates underneath on vast deserts, like the giant worms in Dune? This is a... It could be a lake ship, a river ship, or a sea, but we're going off the presumption that this is a water ship of some kind. The ship in some capacity, pardon me. The ship in some capacity speaks loudly. How does it speak loudly? What does it amplify? From where? And for what purpose? A lightweight but fast spy ship that can't take a lot of damage. Misfits are drawn to the nature of the ship and past missions. Spy missions are a dark secret. Well, yes, as a spy, you could put in some wet work. You can smuggle. There's a lot of things you can do. Cacophony crystals. What are those, Shukan? The ship is hot-tempered. It gets uppity in some instances. It throws a fit, or it becomes very hostile. Its ideal is that of whimsy. Seems to drift about. If something interesting happens, it will take up the opportunity to, be a bit of a trickster. Or if someone says, they see an island on the horizon, the ship might very well fight the navigator or whoever's at the helm, because the ship wants to go explore the island, even if the people aboard it don't. The ship's bond is that it's drawn to a special place. What is that place? Where is that place? Why is that place special? They amplify anything louder than a whisper into a mess of sound, so loud they do sonic damage. I was thinking they could manage to control said crystals to use it as a pseudo-megaphone. It will tell the details of secrets to those who listen as long as they aren't involved in the spy mission. So people who aren't a part of the forbidden knowledge will receive it? I don't know if I totally got you there, Jensen. Now, oh, I'm sorry. It's also in possession of forbidden lore that could combo above with several of the aspects. And our occupation, our background, we're an urchin of some kind. We are, we're lost. We're alone. Ties to other people have been severed by other people or forces, or by bad luck and circumstance. In a sense, if we're an urchin, what if the forest from which we were made burned down? and no more of this kind of wood can be harvested. And so the ship is an urchin, is a product of, an orphan of a place that doesn't exist anymore. Right? What would make a ship, in a sense, like a child? That could also mean, what if the people who built the ship, the society, the race, whatever, what if they died out? I know that a mention of a kobold was brought up, and I'll tell you what, there is a 1 in 35 chance this could be the case. And here's the reason why. Let's throw in a couple other considerations, because this might very well confirm, and even spookily so, your concept of this ship, or if we need some more help finding some inspiration, here's a quick way we can go about it. Yeah, the ship could be drawn back to its origins. So you know what we're going to do for our synopsis? I am going to roll a percentile. Okay. I'm going to roll a 35-sided die. $16. Our ship, male, Goliath. There's no subrace. Percentile, 68. Lawful evil, 12. 2. Bard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. D5. 3. 1, 2, 3. College of Swords. As a Goliath, let's roll a percentile. 37. 18 plus 1d, 26 years. 10. Our ship is 28 years old. That for a wooden sailing ship who's probably been through a lot, that's pretty good. As a Goliath, this is going to be a taller, so perhaps a longer ship, and a stronger ship as well. You're going to hop off now and play some RimWorld? All right, Jericho. Hey, you gave us a lot of ideas that I think we can incorporate into this ship. So, I mean, if you come back and you have more, please share. Otherwise, thank you for spending some time with us before you go off and do your own thing. Be well, Jericho. Seems to be a large ship which suits some of the crew's sizes. Sea shanties. Maybe it looks strong, puts on a good front. Well, it would have to because, well, I mean, it doesn't mean it can't be strong. We definitely are a high charisma. I mean, if this ship is a College of Swords Bard. In fact, that is out of... Is that out of Xanathar's? Yep, we're on page 15. This could also be a part of why we're loud. I'm kind of curious. I would love to see the defining work. 5. A hoop, 2 pigeons, and a hellhound. A subtle parody of an incompetent noble. Something to think about here. An incompetent noble. Could that be a part of the forbidden lore? I mean, this doesn't have to apply necessarily. It could. We could use this as an inspiration as well. There's an embarrassment. Is that too particular? Maybe. But before any of this... Sorry, I got myself distracted. College of Swords. Bards of the College of Swords are called blades, and they entertain through daring feats of weapon prowess. Blades perform stunts such as sword swallowing, knife throwing, and juggling, and mock combats. Though they use their weapons to entertain, they are also highly trained and skilled warriors in their own right. Their talent with weapons inspires many blades to lead double lives. One blade might use a circus troupe as cover for nefarious deeds, such as an assassination, robbery, and blackmail. Other blades strike at the wicked, bringing justice to bear against the cruel and powerful. Most troops are happy to accept a blade's talent for the excitement it adds to a performance, but few entertainers fully trust a blade in their ranks. Blades who abandon their lives as entertainers have often run into trouble that makes maintaining their secret activities impossible. A blade caught stealing or engaging in vigilante justice is too great a liability for most troops. With their weapon skills and magic, these blades either take up work as enforcers for thieves' guilds or strike out on their own as adventurers. When you join the College of Swords at 3rd level, you gain proficiency with medium armor and the scimitar. If you're proficient with a simple or martial melee weapon, you can use it as a spellcasting focus in your bard spells. You adopt a fighting style. Duel. All right, so we can do this. We'll just go odds or evens here for dueling or 2-weapon fighting. This could be a part of our weapon, any sort of weapons or defenses. Odds or evens on a D12, because why not? Odds. We rolled a 5. So we're a dueling. When you're wielding a melee weapon in one hand and no others, you get a +2 bonus to damage rolls. Blade Flourish. Whenever you take the attack action, your walking speed increases by 10 feet. So this would be a consideration. Maybe we are a little lighter and quicker. I mean, we may be a big ship, but we could be a little quicker. Defensive Flourish. You can expend one of your Bardic Inspiration to cause the weapon to deal extra damage to the target you hit. The damage equals the number you roll on the Bardic Inspiration die. You also add the number rolled to your AC until the start of your next turn. Slashing Flourish. You can expend one use of your Bardic Inspiration to deal extra damage. And Mobile. You can use your Bardic Inspiration to cause the weapon to deal extra damage to the target you hit. You can also Push. I think we're definitely going to be getting a ram one way or another. And we would get an extra attack. All right. It will have a low con, Jensen. Don't forget to roll level. I guess we could, but I don't think that the level's really necessary because I just want the quick inspiration of thematically what is this ship if it were to manifest in a sort of a humanoid form. This could even be the former captain or admiral or whatever, the commandant or something, or this would just be the way that the ship has been decorated, right? I was mentioning a lot of sort of like Art Deco stuff. So you get these very bald, buff, men holding aloft, great symbols of strength, or are showing off something. And Goliaths are very much that. They are bald and beautiful and buff. And so that could lend to the artistic expression, or we could interpret Goliath as it is a longboat because of its size. College of Swords is going to make it certainly a lot more assaulty. I like the shanties idea. It drives non-misfits mad by telepathically singing shanties non-stop into the mind. The evil side of the ship. Well, Jensen, remember that just because it's lawful evil doesn't mean it's out to try and hurt people. The lawful aspect is simply that it is more self-centered, right? It wants to preserve itself or its goals at times, or more often than not, even 51 to 49, its goals are more important than others. So the selfish is the evil side. The lawful side is it could be methodical. And you can say, well, hold on, how did we get a chaotic ideal and have whimsy, but we have a ship that's methodical? There are things that need to be done in a certain succession. And when they're done, the ship expresses itself or allows freedom, right? If it's a self-centered ship, once the chores are done, people can play. I mean, by play is probably doing more duties, or at least the duties that other people want to do. We don't have to take lawful evil as a hard and fast rule, because ultimately I don't necessarily want to build... how to put this? I don't want to build an intelligent ship that is completely its own character. Oftentimes, the allure and the danger of having sentient swords and the like is that they're either just ignored, and so why bother? Or they become a purposeful or inadvertent tool of the DM to tell the party what to do and where to go at all times. And so it can be a railroad mechanic, or it could be, it could just be ignored because we're like, it's dumb. You know what? It's not even worth it. We're just going to sell the ship to someone. So for some prompts like this, when we're getting into very specifically, building a character, these are things that we can consider, but I don't want to stress that the ship is evil and tries to kill people by going out of its way and doing so or the like. I was thinking of a ram design that would be not PG-13, the classic one-finger salute pointing forward. Oh, jeez. The personality of the first captain down to the T, each following captain can't handle. I see what you're saying on the sentient aspect and alignment for the ship. Yeah, so effectively, I don't know. You can do this differently at home. Nothing wrong with it. I think that we could almost treat the ship as if it were a giant trinket. Right? Trinkets in 5th edition have magical powers, ? They're certainly odd. They don't stand out. And magical trinkets can be very compelling in some interesting ways. but they're not necessarily sentient. And trinkets don't necessarily have a huge impact on the story, but they certainly can spice it up and make it interesting. Maybe it's a culmination of all the previous captains. Ah. All right, so we definitely have we have a bit of a fighter. We have something that is very charismatic, can present a compelling story, has room for lots of interesting, motifs and reliefs and paintings and gilded things. An example of a magical trinket: a box containing metallic flavored nuts, refills every day, hard but edible. Enough food to last you the day. I would not provide that as a trinket, Shukan, personally, because it creates food, which has a really no mechanical benefit to eating. No, I wouldn't offer that as a trinket, or not a mechanical, like a no mechanical detriment to eating. Now, something like if you put walnuts into the box, and the walnuts come out and they have a metallic sheen, but are still walnuts, that could be interesting as a trinket. But food production, I wouldn't put at trinket level. Hey, Fallon, welcome. Hello, Evelyn. The captains die in mysterious ways not related to the ship. And so we're waiting for the are we waiting for the one who can survive? Now, I don't think I'm getting galley. I mean, galley's 130 feet by 20. That's pretty prodigious. A keelboat is 60 by 20. That could be very interesting then. There's a galley. Longships are vessels that rely on a rowing crew and sails to move across the sea. These ships are typically used to carry soldiers into combat. The size of a longship makes it easy for troops to get on and off quickly, making it the perfect ship for engaging in surprise strikes. That could be more of this College of Swords, right? As you kind of infiltrate, you're quicker. People might not expect that you do what you do. I don't think we're going to be talking a rowboat. We didn't roll a halfling. Everyone's an officer, but that's because there's only 6 people. There's a long ship. We have a keelboat. Just a plain sailing ship. That's another 100 by 20. Sailing and warship are almost the same. Sailing ships are fast-moving designs focused on travel. Warships are slower but more heavily armed vessels, capable of taking on more cargo. They share many of the following areas, but as their map tags reveal, they don't have the exact same facilities. A sailing ship or warship has the following features. Those could actually be interesting. Rather small crew, right? 30 crew, 20 passengers. It can carry a goodly amount of cargo, and it does move at 5 miles per hour. The warship is 40, 60, and 200 tons, and it can move 4 miles per hour. So I think what we could end up doing... is making it a sailing ship, but giving it a naval ram. Our constitution is also lighter on a sailing ship than on a warship, which would make sense. And while the ships don't have mental stats, we know that it's a very charismatic ship. And so this would be an outlay for our sailing ship. It's custom. Well, it's custom because it has its own personality. Exactly. A small galley sounds about right. In Amsterdam, there are articulated streetcars, 2 with a hinge in the middle. Could possibly a longship have such a hinge so it could turn faster? If you found a way to make it watertight, maybe? But it would be, I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting, Zuler Pie. Like, if it was propelled by, well, a propeller, I could see that. But if you have a sailing vessel that starts bending in half, I think that could make for a bit of a nightmare, trying to capture the wind and tack into it. You know, as an urchin, we could even replace something. We could say that maybe the mangonel is replaced by a naval ram, and we can keep the ballista. And instead, we can do something like, if it's flamboyant or has something outlandish, maybe it has a crane arm for cargo, but it looks like, oh yeah, a strong arm that picks stuff up. You know, to look kind of like a buff ship. This also looks like this is a 3-masted ship, too. This is a dueling fighting style, which also indicates that if we fight with one weapon, like a weapon in one hand, a melee weapon in one hand, and no others, we'll get bonus damage. So we could probably give ourselves the ram, or like somehow improve the ballista, because we would only have kind of the one weapon. The ram can be used as a weapon, but it's also a defensive measure in case of collision with something else. It is a melee weapon, Shukan. Dueling is you can have a shield. You can have a shield and one weapon, but you can't have 2 weapons or one weapon in 2 hands. So really here we have minus mangonel, add naval ram, add, I don't know, like add a crane. Just an idea, would not have to bend far to give a huge improvement on turning. Ancient Kobold Shipwrights Guild Secret. Well, in this case, we could say that Goliath's built it, and it's a Goliath design, or it's inspired by Goliaths in some way. And I'm not saying that to poo-poo your ideas, Zuler Pie, like, oh, I'm just being polite or whatever. you know, I don't mind necessarily, you know, innovation or you all throwing out ideas. You know, if we could somehow work it into the history, although would a kobold ship function like this and carry tons of cargo, or have these kind of reliefs showing these big battles and such? Maybe they would. You know, if you can pitch out the idea and develop it for me better. You know, really, I mean, there's some more history we can develop here, but I think that we have a really solid concept for our ship. You know, as we sit down, we can play with this image. In fact, maybe I can try and cut it out and load it up in Paint or something, or just somehow we can play around with it. But now that we have the idea for the ship, and by the way, I'd love a name for the ship. I would love to know what your impression of this ship. What would it be called? But I'm gonna get up and take a little bit of a break. I got to stretch my back out and whatnot. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we can finish up some details of the ship. But I also want to discuss the crew aboard the ship. And then we can also outfit the ship maybe with a couple special things, or go over the stats or how to go about that, building or customizing a ship using the rules in Ghost of Saltmarsh. Yeah, suggestions are always welcome, Zulerpie, and you all have had amazing ideas. The Bellowing Ram? Could be the Bellowing Ram. Bridget, says Jensen. Well, keep putting them, even though I'm going to get up and take a quick break, keep letting me know some names. And I'll see you soon.